So I just finished this book, White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I wanted to give my honest thoughts on it. I wanted to give an informed opinion for the YouTube audience. Wow, what a racist piece of shit. Like, I cannot believe that something like this could actually be published. White fragility. Like, literally, white people are inherently racist. And if you don't acknowledge that, if you don't bow down to your black overlords, you are part of the problem. You are not acknowledging that black people have been oppressed by our society for hundreds of years. Like, sure, you yourself don't do anything. Like, I love how this bitch like emphasizes like so often like how we learn racism, like how she like, oh man, you learn how to you learn racism from interacting with your friends by making these judgments about like groups of people by media, the way they're presented in media, songs, movies, TV shows, things like that. I have a lot to say about this. For one thing, can't you say the same thing about yourself? Like, can't you say that your judgment of white people that were fragile and have fragile souls comes from this indoctrination you've been exposed to in American universities, where they literally believe that like white people are responsible for everything wrong in America, that white people are responsible for everything that's wrong in the black community. Like, we're the reason that like everything in America doesn't work and is broken. Like, we're the problem. Like, they always do this. Like, she talks this shit like, oh man, white people don't like what I have to say. Like, when I come out and call them racist, they don't like it. Like, instead of thanking me for telling them that they're racist, they get angry. Like, instead of like apologizing and striving to do better, they get angry with me. Because look at this bitch, Robin DiAngelo, I think your name is. My fellow white, okay? My fellow white person, okay? You need to understand that your book that I read never actually shows how white people are racist. You assert they are. You make these statements they are. You talk about how uppity you get when people deny they're racist, but you don't actually show how racism impacts society in a way where black people can't succeed at all, no matter what they do, while white people thrive just for being white. Like, you make all these excuses, you make all these justifications, like, you do all these things, like, you always bring up, like, slavery and women's suffrage and all this shit, but, like, those aren't issues today. You know what I mean? That's not a problem today, and yet somehow women aren't happy, black people aren't happy. It's almost like, you know, maybe they're responsible for their own problems. Like, maybe it's not white people that are making these diverse minority groups like miserable. It's because of their own actions and how they go about things and how they try to use racism to get free things from society. Like, we're always seeing this with like Black Lives Matter. Like, it's just a tool, a vehicle for communism. Basically, it's not actually about race. They just want you to give them more free shit. It's kind of pathetic. It's kind of sad, and man, I hated this book. Congratulations, Lindsay Ellis. You have it. Yeah, you didn't write the worst book I've read this year. Like, my big takeaway with this thing is that, like, the establishment, like the controlled opposition, the academics, they are extremely racist. against white people. Like, they're straight up telling you that you're a hateful person just because you're white, just because you exist, basically. And it is ridiculous. It is absurd. I saw right through this shit. It was embarrassing to read. You didn't make a single good point in your entire book, you bitch. It just, my fellow white. It's just, damn, what a stupid cunt. Like, oh man, I run diversity. I run diversity meetings, and I'm surprised when white people don't like being told that they're racist. Like, it's just, like, you fundamentally don't understand why people don't like those accusations being thrown at them. Like, it's really, really stupid. Embarrassing, even. Like, this is what passes for, like, pro BLM propaganda. Like, really, the propaganda book they put out in order to support the movement, like, this is the best they can do. White fragility, just unfucking believable. Weak souls, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, there are lots of things wrong with the book, obviously. Like, I really can't name them all, but basically what it amounts to is that if you don't acknowledge that you're racist, you're a bad person, like, and you should be ashamed. You're like, you need to understand that diversity is a good thing. Diversity is our strength. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're being paid less and the government is, like, fucking you over in taxes and, like, allowing these crazy protests to happen. You're privileged. Like, you're white. You benefit from society even though you clearly don't. Even though everyone clearly hates you. Like, they pull all of these stunts, and I think more and more people are starting to wake up and sort of realize that, like, these people are fucking retarded. Like, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're bigots, essentially, and they deserve to be disrespected. Like, diversity meetings, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, nobody cares about that shit. No one listens to you. No one respects you. Like, no one cares what you have to say. Like, the only reason they do it, much like the mask thing, much like the whole, like, situation, like, much like a whole bunch of other problems with the country, is because people don't want to be seen as not doing something they're supposed to be doing. Like, people have been trained to not be racist, to not judge people based on the color of their skin, and as a result, they don't really like it when people accuse them of being hateful, racist bigots. You know what I mean? It seems kind of contradictory. Like, don't judge people based on the color of their skin, and yet you come out making these blanket statements against your fellow whites. It's just retarded. Like, it is pure, really stupid, like, unbelievably dumb. Like, I'm really not exaggerating. The reason I'm kind of rehashing these points, like, over and over again, rather than, like, talking about the book as a whole, it's all fluff. Like, it really is just all, like, empty fluff, like, trying to guilt you, like, trying to make you feel guilty for being white. There's nothing wrong with being white. Like, let's make that abundantly clear. There is nothing wrong with being of European descent. There's nothing wrong with having pale skin. There's nothing wrong with being descended from, the original settlers or like an immigrant, like, from a European country. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? And yet these people are constantly trying to, like, create this narrative that, like, oh man, if you're white, you benefit from racism, even if your family had nothing to do with it. Like, if you blend into white society, you are enabled by the same society that oppresses blacks, and you should be guilty. No. Fuck that. Like, I don't feel guilty about shit. Like, come the fuck on. It's just, it's embarrassing, man. It really is. And I hope we put an end to these things. Like, I hope we crack down on diversity meetings. They really are anti-white in general. They fucking hate white people. Obviously, like, I can't say that enough. Like, you could, okay. Here's a good litmus test. Like, if you substitute white for black, like in this situation, if you called it like black fragility, if you talked about how black people had weak souls and like they were I don't know, like always deserved to be a slave class or something. They called them like a second class citizen. The way these people are doing, like if you treated them that way, wouldn't that be seen as extremely racist? Going by that logic, then why the fuck is it okay if you're doing it to white people? Like, come the fuck on. And I'm seeing more and more they're trying to like put whites into like different categories, right? So you're seeing a lot of you're starting. I think you saw it with like the Derek Chauvin thing that there was an Asian officer there. So you saw a lot of articles like saying that like, oh, are Asians white now? Are they part of the white supremacy? Like you see a lot of that. Like Asians are getting it too. Like just come the fuck on. Just unbelievable. There is no problem with how minorities are treated in this country. Like no problem at all. Like everyone loves Asians. Everyone Asians are fine. Like shit. I've considered. Oof. Asians are fine. Like nobody has a problem with like really any particular race, right? The issue is primarily like certain groups that sort of present themselves as like speaking for an entire race, like something like Black Lives Matter. Like when I say the blacks, I don't really mean like the black population as a whole. I mean like the communists that support Black Lives Matter, which is of course like, you know, a communist organization. Like you see black people there, but they're mostly young thugs who are there to loot shit. Like it's not, they don't speak for the vast majority of the black community. Like there are plenty of hardworking black people like who are reasonable, respectable, like who don't vote Democrat. I have met several, right? But I don't think that there are a lot of people there that need to be condemned. There are people there that need, well, to be fair, like it feels almost like these academics, these people, politicians, they're being overtly harsh towards racist towards white people while giving blacks like the benefit of the doubt for murder, right? Like trying to justify the violent protests. They're 93% peaceful, I'm told by experts like Video Game Liver 58. The violent protests, right? They're perfectly fine. Like you're not spreading COVID, you're not causing like damage. It's completely justified. Go ahead, do it. Like nobody cares. Meanwhile, like actual peaceful protests by like say gun activists, right? What do you call these people? Second Amendment, pro Second Amendment people. Like those get shut down. Like those weren't allowed to happen during the lockdowns. But Black Lives Matter was fine. Like it's obviously racial, you know what I mean? Like, it's obviously, like, these people are extremely racist, and they don't want to admit it. It's just, it really needs to be acknowledged more, I think, is that, like, these people really do fucking hate you. Like, just reading their books, reading their material, reading their blogs, like, insisting that, like, transgenderism is a good and beautiful thing that should be supported, like supporting homosexuality, like doing all this like disgusting shit while condemning like traditional family values, white people, American values like the Constitution, the right to bear arms, free speech, like condemning this sort of like weird attitude. Like it's ridiculous. It is positively absurd, and I do think we need to more actively condemn works of fiction, I should say, like white fragility. Like it's a retarded ideology. Like this idea that white people simply can't fathom that they're racist. Like no, they know themselves, they know what they believe, they understand fundamentally that that they understand that diversity trainers and the people who fund and operate them promote them are completely full of shit on everything, who don't understand what they're talking about. Like come the fuck on. Like I don't respect diversity people. I don't respect like diversity trainers. Like I'm gonna say that right now. Like they are completely full of shit on everything they say. And this book is a good example of that. All right, like this woman made no good points at all. It almost felt like it was written by like an idiot college student. Like that's kind of like what I felt like. It was like it read like something from like a 20-something college student who like wanted to impress her super liberal professor. So she just did the entire thing like, oh, I'm gonna defend gay rights and talk shit about white people and like praise communism. Like I'm gonna do all this. It's just unbelievable. Just like really pathetic. Not a fan of how that. Not a fan of this book at all. Is there really anything more to say about it? Like again, I doubt anybody actually read this. Actually, I'm not sure. I imagine it just was sort of put out there to sort of like be something that white liberals put on their bookshelf. You know how like a lot of people, social media people, like bought Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis just to post about it on Instagram and Twitter and get some like retweets and follows from her fan base. Like that's basically what this is. Like this is an attempt to try and present this idea that white people are fragile beings that can't handle being told the truth, that they inherently hate black people just for being black. It's just, there's no other reason. Like people haven't decided that like, you know, the black community as a whole is kind of Black Lives Matter is people have been tricked into hating black people. Like they've been tricked into thinking that like we're different from one another. Like there is no difference between the races. Like it's all like clearly incorrect and wrong. If you know anything about like how this know anything about biology, but these people like constantly like they warp history. Like this book tried to like talk shit about like Jefferson, I think. I'm sure that was wrong. History, like they warp history. They present things in a way that isn't actually true. They pervert science. They present like shit like oh yeah, that's right. Like gender as a social construct, I think was something that was brought up at one point, which I know is complete crap. Like complete bullshit. You have to know a lot about a lot of different fields to really get a feel for like how nonsensical a lot of these leftist talking points actually are. Like they always talk about like being pro-science, but in reality they sort of like manufacture a narrative and then like build a scientific case around it, right? That like global warming, they're constantly trying to prove it is happening. Like COVID, they're constantly like trying to say we have more cases even though we don't. Clearly don't. They're trying to call their opponents anti-science when they themselves don't follow the scientific method at all. Nothing they do is science-based at all. Like that, nothing they say or do is based in reality, even like observable reality. Like, because most people understand that they don't hate black people just for being black. Like if they have an issue with the black community, it's because of their interactions with them and how they've been treated. And with the protests, with the endless looting and things like that, like people are really starting to hate fucking black people, and for good reason, because like Black Lives Matter is basically putting themselves out there and doing a lot of retarded shit in the name of all black people, which is just ridiculous. And again, they're doing all this to sort of divide the nation, and you really I don't know. Yeah, what do we need to do about this? I don't know. Like, just throw the rioters in prison. Like, a lot of them are white liberals anyway. Like, fuck them. Like, throw them in prison. Like, end the riots, and then like just sort of not allow Black Lives Matter to continue to exist, and then we'll be fine. Like, we just need the protests to stop, and we'll be fine. Like they don't really have a movement outside of their violent protests. Like without the violent protests, they really have nothing, nothing that could keep them relevant. Yeah, so like people would just ignore them, just like they ignore the diversity trainers trying to sell them on their cult, basically their cult of personality. Um, like if you can't like constantly say like society is keeping you down, like society is oppressing you, when you constantly like go against society in these ways. Like when you constantly say that like, oh man, they're only after me because I'm black, when you're like stealing a bunch of stuff and oh, but stealing stuff is normal for me. Like no, anyway, I think I'm getting off topic, but yeah, so needless to say, the book is awful. Don't read it. Like the main reason I did it was mostly just to take a look at it and see what like her core argument was, and there was no argument. Like her entire shtick was white people are bad. That's it. Like that's the entire book basically. Like I summed it up in one sentence. Like white people are bad. Like white people are racist, and they won't deal with their racism, so they're bad. It's just pure propaganda, I think. Pure ridiculousness. I spit on this game. I spit on this book. I spit on the woman who wrote it. Like I think you're a piece of shit. Like I don't respect you. I don't respect your cause. I don't respect your agenda. I don't respect Black Lives Matter. I don't respect communists. Like I don't respect you.